Leo, if you found your way to this message today, it's not by chance, it's because July 31st marks your final cosmic checkpoint, and what you do with this moment will echo for years. Let me begin with this. Are you truly willing to stay stuck in patterns that no longer serve you until 2033? Because that's what's at stake. This isn't just another astrology update. This is a sacred intervention. A soul-level warning written in the stars. And if your heart has been heavy, your mind restless, or your energy off-center lately, it's because the universe is whispering no, calling for you to rise. On July 31st, three powerful forces align: the sun, your ruling light, the moon, keeper of your emotions, and Uranus, the awakener of truth. Together, they form what I call a soul recalibration portal. It doesn't open often, and it doesn't open for everyone. But it has opened for you, Leo, and you are now standing at a crossroads. On one side, more of the same emotional burnout, self-sabotage cycles, spiritual misalignment. On the other, bold evolution, clarity, and the kind of breakthrough your soul has been praying for in silence. But here's the truth: this isn't automatic. It's not guaranteed. You have to claim it. And to do that, you must avoid three deadly mistakes that could block your entire path forward. We'll uncover those three traps together in just a moment, but first, I want to say something important. Thank you. Not just for watching this video, but for being here with your full presence, your open heart, your willingness to seek more. Every like, every comment, every subscription to Eternal Mindfulness is not just support, it's a declaration to the universe that you are ready for alignment. That you're part of a spiritual community that values truth, transformation, and self-leadership. Your support means we can continue delivering soul-shifting messages like this. And trust me when I say this, what you're about to hear today could mark the moment where your entire destiny begins to shift. But only if you choose to stay fully awake for it. So ask yourself honestly, what part of you led you here today? What part of your spirit is tired of pretending you're okay when deep down you're craving change? What dream have you delayed for too long? Stay with me, Leo, because what the universe is revealing now is beyond powerful, it's urgent. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to choose differently today. Before we dive into the core message, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below with, "I claim my shift. I'm ready to rise." Let the universe see it. Let your soul declare it. Let this be the moment you break the cycle, not repeat it. So take a deep breath, Leo. You're not here to play small. You were born to command energy, not chase it. And now, let's reveal the three deadly mistakes you must avoid on July 31, because your timeline is waiting. Leo, as we stand here at the gateway of July 31st, something ancient is stirring beneath the surface of your experience, something that has been quietly building across timelines, waiting for this precise intersection. The alignment of the Sun, Moon, and Uranus does not simply form a triangle in the sky, it draws a path beneath your feet, one that demands presence, choice, and courage. These aren't just celestial bodies shifting in space. They are mirrors reflecting your own inner dance between past, present, and the unclaimed future. Their union on this day opens what can only be called a karmic axis, a turning point that you feel not just intellectually, but viscerally in your chest, in your bones, in that quiet knowing behind your everyday thoughts. The sun, your ruling light, represents your core self, your essence, your truth, your birthright to lead. The moon, soft and watchful, reflects your emotional memory, what you've absorbed but haven't released, what you've felt but never spoken. And Uranus, the cosmic disruptor, slices through illusions with electric clarity, forcing you to see what you've long avoided. This alignment doesn't coddle you. It doesn't wait for your convenience. It cracks open what's been calcified, and the truth it reveals is not here to punish, it's here to set you free. But freedom, as you know, doesn't come without choice. And that's where the real weight of this moment lies. This is the crossroads, the mythic fork in the road that you've felt in your dreams, in your fatigue, in those sudden urges to leave everything behind. You are like a lion standing before a flaming gate. Behind you, years of looping patterns and familiar pains. Ahead, an undefined but luminous future. And the gate will not choose for you. It opens only when you step through it with full awareness. Not out of impulse, but from truth. From readiness. Many will feel this transit and miss its meaning entirely. They'll shrug off the unease, dismiss the signs, cling tighter to what is falling apart. They'll whisper to themselves, maybe next time, not realizing that some portals don't reappear. This is one of them. July 31st is not a random date. It is part of a divine spiral, one that spirals upward only when you're willing to release the weight of who you no longer are. In practical terms, this moment will ripple through every aspect of your life. You might feel it as dissatisfaction in your work, a disconnect in your relationships, or a deep questioning of your spiritual or emotional path. You might find yourself growing impatient with surface-level conversations, craving solitude, or being unexpectedly emotional without knowing why. All of it is valid. All of it is necessary. The discomfort you feel is not a setback, it's an invitation. A sacred pull toward your next evolution. You are not broken. You are simply too big to stay in a space that has become too small. And you are being asked to grow beyond the borders of who you've been, not because who you were was wrong, but because it was never meant to contain all of you. There's a quiet teaching passed down through generations, that clarity arises not from escape, but from stillness. That when you stop running from your reflection, you begin to recognize it as your greatest teacher. So I ask you now, where in your life are you pretending not to know what you already know? What patterns are you repeating out of habit rather than love? What would change if, just for today, you chose to believe you are ready? You're not here to guess your way forward. You're here to remember. You're here to reclaim. You're here to rise. And the gate is open. But only for so long. Leo, this next part may stir something within you, because what we're about to explore requires a level of honesty that not everyone is ready for. But I believe you are. Not because you're always strong, but because deep down, you're tired of pretending to be. The truth is, clarity often arrives not in moments of triumph, but in moments when the illusions we've held on to begin to crack. And on this day, July 31st, under the heat of your ruling sun and the quiet revelations of the moon, the light gets so bright that even the shadows cannot hide. Let's talk about the first mistake: chasing what no longer belongs to you. Maybe it's a relationship you've been clinging to, not because it nourishes your spirit, but because you're afraid to be without it. Maybe it's a job or role that once defined you, but now only drains you. Or perhaps it's the version of yourself you've outgrown, yet you still wear like a familiar coat. When we grip the past tightly, it's not because we need it, it's because we fear who we are without it. But what we often forget is that holding on to expired energy sends a distorted signal out into the world. That signal says, I don't trust that better exists. And the universe, ever responsive, reflects that belief right back. You can't fly while dragging what was never meant to cross this next threshold with you. Imagine pulling a suitcase filled with old regrets, outdated labels, expired promises across a burning bridge meant to purify, not punish. And then wondering why your wings won't lift. The law of attraction works most potently when we make space. Not when we beg. Not when we perform. But when we release. The frequency of your next chapter can't find you while you're tuned into the sorrow of what should have been. That's why the most powerful action you can take today isn't to chase something but to step back. Let the silence reveal who or what was only being held together by your effort alone. And yet, even after letting go, many Leo hearts still carry a hidden burden. Because the second mistake is pretending you're fine when you're quietly unraveling. You wear the sun on your sleeve. You radiate confidence. You know how to light up a room even when your inner world feels like it's flickering. But the moon on July 31st exposes what your smile can no longer shield. You may feel it in sudden waves: irritability, fatigue, unexpected emotion, or the impulse to isolate. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals. Invitations. To feel what you've buried beneath performance. To meet yourself with compassion, not criticism. You are not fragile for feeling deeply. You are only fragile when you pretend you don't. There's no shame in pausing, in crying, in saying, I'm not okay, even when you don't have the language to explain why. Sometimes the bravest thing a lion can do is to lay down its roar and let the tears speak. They carry medicine. And if you time them with intention, say at 7:07, 11:11, or 20:20, you align yourself with the rhythm of natural emotional intelligence. These aren't just numbers. They're reminders that there is divine order within your most chaotic moments. Use them. Write in your journal. Call someone who sees the real you. Let that be your offering to the part of you that's been waiting to breathe. And finally, the third mistake is perhaps the most subtle and the most dangerous. It's the delay of your soul's calling. You know what I'm talking about. That soft inner nudge to speak, to write, to teach, to lead, to leave, to leap. The one you've silenced with logic, practicality, or fear. But here's the thing, the universe isn't whispering anymore. It's raising its voice. Not to scare you but to wake you. And yet, what's tragic is how many people stand before their calling like a person holding a key, staring at the door, convinced they're not worthy to turn it. But you are. Not when you're ready. Not when you're perfect. But now. Today. While you're still scared. While you're still figuring it out. If you wait for life to quiet down before you begin, you may never start. And July 31st is your window. This is not just another inspiration high that fades by morning. This is a pivotal shift. A soul contract renewal. If you delay it, you don't just lose momentum, you risk dimming your fire until the next portal, and who knows how long that might take. So take one small step. Meditate for 10 minutes. Light a candle. Speak out loud, even if your voice shakes. Say, I choose my path. I allow what's next. I trust the spark inside me. The power is not in being fearless. The power is in moving while still trembling. That is how a lion evolves. Not through perfection, but through presence. And maybe, just maybe, the door that's been waiting for you was never locked. It was only waiting for you to turn toward it and say yes. By the time you reach this part of the journey, something inside you has already begun to soften. There is a subtle but undeniable shift, a quiet readiness, like a door within the soul creaking open after years of being locked by fear or routine. This next chapter, the ritual of timeline resetting, is not about performing some mystical act for spectacle. It is about pausing deeply, deliberately, and returning to the truth that change begins not outside of you, but within your willingness to fully meet the moment. The sun, your ruling celestial body, is not only the force that gives light, it is the symbolic fire of clarity, identity, and renewal. When you choose to stand beneath it as the day begins, you are not just waking up physically, you are allowing yourself to be witnessed by life. You're saying, I am here. I'm no longer hiding in the fog of who I used to be. The spoken phrase, I refuse to live in the past. I choose to step into my destined light, is not just a declaration, it is a realignment. Language, when spoken with clarity and presence, becomes a form of energetic architecture. It shapes your path forward. And when you speak those words into the morning air, you send out a frequency of self-liberation that reshapes the conditions around you, often in invisible but potent ways. But letting go is not a single act. It is a process of digestion, a gentle burning of what no longer resonates. And so in the quiet hours of evening, when the energy of the day has settled and your mind is more receptive to reflection, you engage in the second ritual, release. Writing down what you are finally ready to let go of is an act of courage. It is not about controlling the outcome, it's about acknowledging your agency. Perhaps it's an old belief that you're not enough. A relationship that drains you. A voice in your mind that only echoes shame or comparison. When you write it out, you pull it from the hidden chambers of your emotional body and place it into the physical world. It becomes tangible. And in that tangibility, you reclaim power. The fire, represented by the Leo archetype and symbolized through the orange or golden flame, is more than heat, it is transformation. It is the element that purifies by turning form into light. When you burn what you've written, you are not destroying something, you are returning it to source. You are creating space in your energy field where something new can take root. And as you watch the paper curl and ash, you remind yourself, this no longer controls me. I am light. Not because you deny what happened, but because you no longer choose to be defined by it. And then, as night falls, the realignment deepens. This is where the body rests but the spirit opens. Playing a 528 Hz frequency, often known as the frequency of love or DNA healing, gently invites your nervous system into harmony. It softens the body while tuning the subtle energetic field to receptivity. While this may seem like a small act, sound bypasses logic. It speaks to the parts of you that live beneath language. And that's where change begins to solidify, not through conscious effort alone, but through subconscious permission. Visualization becomes your final gateway. As you lie still, let your breath be slow and full. Picture yourself walking through a golden gate made of fire, not as a test, but as a transition. On the other side, imagine a version of yourself who already lives the life you seek. See the strength in their stance, the ease in their voice, the radiance in their choices. This is not a fantasy. This is an energetic truth already coded within your field. You are not fabricating it, you are remembering it. There is a wisdom passed down through generations that says, when the student is ready, the path appears. But what is rarely spoken is that the path was always there, the readiness was just your willingness to see it. These rituals are not here to fix you. They are here to bring you back to yourself. Not the self you've outgrown, not the one molded by fear, but the self that has been patiently waiting for your return. And so, on this night, after this day of alignment and release, you sleep not just to rest, but to recalibrate. Because when you rise tomorrow, you will not be who you were. You will be who you decided to become. When the internal shifts begin to ripple through your awareness, when you've spoken your intention, released what no longer serves, and recalibrated your energy, there comes a gentle but essential question. How do you bring all of this into the physical world? Transformation, after all, isn't complete unless it touches the everyday. It's not enough to feel awakened during a ritual if your habits, choices, and behaviors remain rooted in outdated patterns. This is where change becomes real. Not in the stars, but in the way you breathe, the food you choose, the way you speak to yourself on a tired morning, or how you decide to show up for a conversation that matters. Your health is the first and most sacred container of this shift. It holds everything: your energy, your memory, your creative fire. And under Leo's solar influence, the nervous system becomes especially reactive to stress, overstimulation, and emotional suppression. You may notice it as restlessness, tension in the chest, or a shortness of breath you can't quite explain. These are not flaws to be fixed. They are messages asking for awareness. Gentle, intentional breathing, what some call the sun breath, helps invite your attention back into your body, one inhale at a time. The practice isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Add to this a touch of golden support, foods rich and warm, solar colors like turmeric, squash, or mango help your internal rhythms realign with Leo's fire in a grounded way. Magnesium and B-complex vitamins act as quiet allies too, soothing the nervous system and helping to carry emotional detox through the physical body. Then, there's your work life. And perhaps for some of you, this is the area where the dissonance feels the loudest. You might be wondering why you feel disconnected from something you once loved. Or why everything feels like a performance that no longer reflects your essence. Rather than interpret this as failure or burnout, consider it a spiritual checkpoint. There is a time when the structures we've built start to feel like cages rather than containers. That's the moment to pause. Not necessarily to quit, but to realign. One of the most restorative things you can do now is return to a forgotten joy. What lit you up before you became practical? What did you create when no one was watching? Your inner child isn't asking to take over. It's asking to be re-invited to the table, even if only for a few minutes each day. Sometimes, learning a new skill that has nothing to do with your job can restore the very energy you've been seeking in your work. Financially, this season calls not for contraction or fear but for discernment. Leo energy is generous, abundant, and expansive, but its shadow can lead to dramatic excess or emotional spending. The question to ask yourself now is not, do I have enough? But, am I using what I have in alignment with my values? Creating a plan doesn't mean limiting yourself, it means liberating your energy from anxiety. This is a beautiful time to engage with money not as something to chase or fear, but as a current of energy you are capable of guiding. Structure is not the opposite of flow. When used with care, it becomes the vessel for expansion. Choose to spend not from pressure or impulse, but from a place of inner fullness. And then there is love, the tender undercurrent beneath it all. If this energy shift has stirred your heart, if it's made you reflect on your relationships or your longing for deeper connection, you're not alone. There is a collective movement right now pulling us away from performative intimacy and toward true energetic resonance. This means letting go of the need to prove that you're fine. It means choosing people who recognize the frequency beneath your words, not just what you say, but how your presence feels. And if no one around you matches that just yet, let that be okay. Create the space within yourself first. Because love begins not when someone else sees you, but when you stop hiding from yourself. Transformation doesn't have to be loud to be lasting. It doesn't demand that you reinvent your whole life overnight. It only asks that you begin moving through the world with more honesty, more softness, and more courage than before. In these 4 areas, your body, your purpose, your resources, and your heart are the gateways to a new timeline. And every time you choose alignment over habit, you affirm the version of you that your soul has always known you could become. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when surviving is no longer enough, when the desire to simply make it through is replaced by a deeper pull to become something more. And Leo, if you're still here, still breathing through these words, it means something inside you has already made that decision, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. You're not here to repeat old stories. You're here to rewrite them. Not from the wounds of who you used to be, but from the wisdom of who you are becoming. You've walked through the fire. You've faced the mirror. You've felt the weight of silence, the ache of clinging, the hesitation of staying in places that never saw your full light. But now the door is open, not because you waited long enough, but because you finally became ready enough to see it. You were never stuck because the path wasn't there. You were only stuck because the part of you that longed for freedom hadn't yet chosen to believe it deserved to be free. So I ask you gently but honestly, are you still holding on to a version of yourself that was only built to protect you, not expand you? Are you willing to burn the masks that once kept you safe, but now keep you small? And if the answer is yes, if something in you is whispering, it's time, even if your voice shakes, then know this, you are not alone in that choice. You are part of a much greater shift that's happening, not just in your chart, but in your consciousness. The universe isn't punishing you. It's preparing you. And preparation doesn't always feel comfortable. It often shows up as endings, as truth-telling, as the quiet breaking of everything familiar. But behind every collapse is a blueprint for something higher. You are being restructured. Not randomly. Not harshly. But lovingly. Deliberately. Powerfully. And now, the question is no longer, why is this happening to me, but, who am I choosing to become because of it? If this message spoke to something deep within you, I truly invite you to mark this moment not just by watching, but by responding. Let your energy meet the energy of transformation. Leave a comment below saying, "I choose to step into the light. I am ready. I will not stay stuck." Say it, not for me, not for this channel, but for yourself, for the version of you that's watching, waiting, hoping you'll finally listen and act. And if you felt seen, held, or inspired in any part of this video, please know that your presence here means more than you may realize. Every like, every share, every comment, and every subscription you offer to Eternal Mindfulness is a seed of intention. It's what allows us to continue creating content that isn't just informative but transformational. Thank you from the depths of my being for spending this time with me. For trusting your curiosity. For following the thread of your own awakening all the way to this moment. Whether you're standing at the edge of something new or quietly unraveling what no longer fits, just know this: you are never behind, and it is never too late to return to your path. July 31st does not have to be just another date. It can be the day your soul remembers who it truly is. It can be the beginning of a new timeline, one where your choices are not driven by fear, but by clarity, courage, and conscious intention. So breathe, Leo. Trust. And walk forward, not because the path is guaranteed to be easy, but because you've finally remembered, you were never meant to follow a map. You were born to light the way.